All right, that's a wrap on The Boys Season 2. I just didn't have the time to go through it episode by episode, and I kind of had to catch up anyway. But basically, the outcry that I saw in titles and other brief discussions that I had to jump out of, I didn't want to get spoiled, was that it went woke and was going too far in that direction. And a lot of this stuff will happen because we're in this hyper wokeness era in pop culture. It's everywhere else as well, but this is for the purposes of entertainment in this video, and it's dragged down an awful lot. For the most part, wokeness or PC culture, however you want to put it, SJW thinking and philosophies, if you can even call it that, is used as a shield for lazy, lackluster plots and whatnot. And I've seen that evidenced in the likes of the recent Star Trek shows and Doctor Who and stuff like that. To some extent, Star Wars, but it was probably just the face value of this look, our diverse cast, and that was enough. And they literally had no plot or story. It's just an astounding thing. But in the case of The Boys, that's not the case. They did have plot and character development and story, and they were very good at it. And in this season, it's no different. They're very good in their presentation and their abilities to move and tell a story. So a lot of times, is there going to be leftist thing? Yes, and that's always been the case. I'm 50 years old, and it's always been the case of everything I've watched and whatnot. As it ages, some of that stuff, you look back on it and you think, wow, that's kind of conservative. It wasn't at the time, but, and that's how these things go. But a little bit of here and there and stuff like that, and especially when you, if anyone would ever do that, and occasionally you get it, where you have a character who's seen as a negative. He's a flawed person, or she is, but is clearly on the left in their thinking and whatnot. And you can go to something like The Watchmen, where you have Rorschach, who's supposed to be of the right and whatnot, and then Ozymandias is of the left. And yet, who's the ultimate villain there? I mean, Rorschach's a crazy, messed up guy, but Ozymandias, he's the villain, He murders all those people. And that's what a raw talent can do, even though the talent himself, in the case of Alan Moore, was a guy on the left. But he's honest in his characterization. He wants his characters to be alive as much as possible, and he gives them that. And when you have a talent that's aware of this and understanding of their capabilities and wants to push it like that, you're going to see it in the work, and you see that in The Boys. Now, The Boys is nowhere near what a Watchmen achieved. Stylistically, I have my complaints about Watchmen. It's got plot problems, but The Boys is pretty damn good. And so for the most part, little nods here and there and stuff like that. But when it's almost damn near breaking the fourth wall or something along those lines, where they drop something in it to kick you right out of the story. Well, I mean, I suppose if I rewatched the series again, I could see more, but obviously most egregiously was the little opening bit in the 7th episode. And of course, it's a metaphor for what went on during the Terror War, and the real danger was Islamophobia. Yeah, it was. And it plays into white supremacy. Oh my God, yeah. After everything we've been through, now, that's been 20 years of the Terror War, and I'll stack up the body count of infidelophobia against Islamophobia any day, anywhere, anytime, and you'll be found wanting. The wholesale slaughter that went on, a lot of whom were Muslims. Yeah, but you just wanted to preach Islamophobia, even to the point of besmirching and smearing Muslims who stood up against this message. And people who, well, actually a former Muslim, which you can understand, since when she was in that religion, they sexually mutilated her, Ayan Hirsi Ali, and look how the left treated her, after she's still under death threat, And just and that's just a small, bit of this, of how Hollywood is blind to things and doesn't have the spine to speak out against actual raw inhumanity to humanity and crimes and whatnot and evil and the real Nazism of our day, and they completely ignored it for the most part. You'd see it here and there in shows and stuff, and in the early days after 9/11 and that sort of thing. Then they immediately apologized for it. Look what happened to Homeland, So this little thing that they pulled there, as if this happened all the time, whether it was Fox News or Rush Limbaugh or something like that, must have got into people's heads and they went and killed somebody of color who was completely innocent. And but for the preaching and of course free speech is dangerous. But all you have to do is declare it hate speech, and then it's no longer allowed, and that sort of thing. And that's the message of how to shut someone up, is that some nut is going to hear you and think it's okay to go kill somebody who's of the different viewpoint. That does happen. Look at the streets now. But oops, that's on the left. Yeah, burning cities down and murdering people. Yeah, and beating an awful lot of them. Yeah. So, but of course, yeah, Hollywood will never have the spine to take that on. Instead, they'll bail them out. Stuff like that. So it's just, and granted, I don't know when this was shot. They couldn't have foreseen how this year would turn out, but the message in and of it as a metaphor for, the goings on of the terror war and all that stuff. And again, if I had seen it, like if it was like last year they'd done it or something like that, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever, but oh God, just not in the mood for your lying crap and your bigotry, because it is bigotry. You're not going to fight racism by being racist. You're not going to fight sexism by being sexist, and so on. But Hollywood is stupid. They are. They're good at what they do on occasion. But more times than not, when they go into sandboxes they know nothing about, boy, does it show. And there again, not handling it narratively. I mean, yeah, you had the plot with Stormfront and all of that in there. But and of course, was that really a metaphor for the Nazi Party in Germany and all that? And no, it wasn't. Now, the interesting thing about Stormfront's look, where she had a part of her hairstyle shaved, hey, did someone slip that in about militant feminism? But she wasn't really going for that. She was inserting her will. She had her ideas in there and was seducing Homelander and all that stuff. And at first, her character's a bit annoying and all that, but it worked for the character she's kind of supposed to be. And she kind of bullies her way in and all that. That's one of the aspects from the comic book. Stormfront was a man. Did not have a relationship with Homelander like that. But, oh boy, wouldn't that have been progressive? But then you would have him be this villain, and we can't have that. So, whatever. And then these are the other elements of it where, in some ways, the plot's the same, where she's this, Nazi and whatnot. But she, the plot follows it more or less the same, except for Homelander has a son and stuff. And a lot of that, it's like, well, I can understand an adaptation taking liberties and departing from the source material, because then there's no surprises or anything. You see it coming and whatnot. But when there's a really good plot and stuff, like the case of Black Noir, and then that's apparently gone, I guess. Well, maybe you got something better. We'll have to wait and see. But so they did a better job in their second season than Westworld did, and because they still had some ideas and whatnot. Whereas something like Westworld, it seems like all they had was one season's worth of ideas, and then it starts to fall apart. And you do see that a lot. Didn't happen to Game of Thrones until the very end. So maybe they still got something going on here, but the new plot lines they've introduced, they'd better have something for that. But there, when you kick someone out of that's the biggest problem for wokeness, if you will. And but also of interest in that second to last story was it the other subtle message was that fathers are absolutely horrible. They're no good. Every example in there was the fathers were terrible. Obviously Billy Butcher's father was terrible. The scientist who sort of was the father for Homelander was no good. They don't care about each other because Homelander's a monster and the scientist is disgusted. Homelander himself, of course, will not be a good father to the little boy. And there you go. And then, Huey's looking to women to man up rather than to his own father who wilted and was weak, and so on it, which is kind of odd because it's criticizing we're not being masculine enough in that scenario, but that, a lot of times they don't think this through. So that certainly is there, and it's a theme that runs throughout Hollywood all the time. I mean, the Lifetime channel is dedicated to that. Where would they be without deadbeat dads? So yeah, there's that in there, but at least that was weaved more subtly, but not only just. And so the final episode is that, of course they had the big conflict and everything, and it's a pretty good badass action, but the badass is, guess who's the badass? Yes, the girls get it done. Yeah. So you had to have a bunch of guys sit there and, wow, that's awesome. Fortunately, they all had superpowers, so that kind of explains that, doesn't it? So this sets it up about how things are going, and and in a lot of ways, when it says, hey, it's dark humor and it's a mockery of things like South Park. Oh boy, you're no South Park, because there are certain sacred cows you will never touch upon, and so yeah, it's kind of, you're a bit weak in comparison to South Park. So it's not something enough to say, oh God, I'm done with these assholes. But man, after a year like this, it's like, gee, maybe they've learned something, and going forward it'll be different. But I don't know. Now going forward, can they? I don't know. I mean, everything's got to be locked down again. Who knows? How do you film? I don't know. But so yes, there's a lot of good at it. It's not as bad as other just pure trash that just looked pretty, but had no cake for all the icing. No, The Boys does have some cake in there, but there's a ton of nasty icing too. So anyway, that's just too bad that things like that happen. And boy, I'm not in the best of moods right now as I'm taping this, because tomorrow I'm going to get hit by another hurricane. Yeah, but don't worry. I've pre-programmed quite a few videos to go throughout the week. Whether I'm able to do it or not during the coming week, who knows? I'm definitely going to lose power. I don't know how long it'll be out this time. It was a little over 2 weeks this time around, first one around, so we'll see how long this goes and that sort of thing. So I do appreciate the subscriptions, and I'll try to get back as soon as I possibly can. Anyway, there you go, The Boys Season 2. I'm sure you've already seen it. If you like it, if you like dark superhero stuff, yeah, it's good for you, but just you're going to get pushed out of the show on a time or two for a political ad, if you will. That's not a very honest one either, but there it is.
All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores and have plenty of goodies for you. Hats, mugs, stickers, posters, all that goody stuff. Plus, you can head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book Night Night. Oh, yeah. Plus, you can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on my channel at BitChute. That's the Mr Nailsin channel on BitChute.com.